Greetings and a huge welcome to today's show. My name is Ariella Indigo and it's my absolute honour to be your host for Season 2 of the Multidimensional Human Experience Global Summit. So as you know, we're talking about all things personal ascension related in this summit, a topic that affects all of us and is still largely unrecognised by mainstream. We're so incredibly fortunate to have so many way showers alive on the planet today to share their experience with us about what the ascension process is all about and how to advance in our spiritual evolution. And today's guest has done huge amounts of service in this arena. There's a vast amount of free offerings on her website and on her YouTube channel. So we're truly blessed to be able to access these incredible tools to help us on our own paths. And this is the second time that I've had the honour of interviewing Anrita. The first time was last year in Season 1 of the show, and I liked her energy and her teaching so much that I couldn't wait to reach out to her and invite her back for Season 2. So to give my guest a more formal introduction, Anrita Melchizedek is the founder of the Melchizedek and Pleiadian Light Network, which is an ascension network offering numerous programs in the forms of ebooks, MP3s, as well as vibrational energy products. Anrita is a high priestess of the Order of Melchizedek, a DNA blueprinter, author, channel, empath, star ambassador, light frequency encoder, and workshop facilitator. Anrita's a Pleiadian starseed, love my starseeds, and has the gift of speaking in really beautiful high frequency light languages. Anrita, welcome back to the show. It's so great to see you again.
Thank you, Ariella. It's wonderful to connect with you too, and thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
So may we start off at the beginning, if there is ever a beginning, and ask you to share with the viewers what your understanding is about the personal ascension process.
Well, that's quite a big question. I think if we even started off from where we ended off last year on that first show to where we are between then and now, really, I think our planet has just accelerated into that next level of light frequency collectively. We've talked a lot about, not only our individual awakening, but really so much about this planetary ascension journey. And that planetary ascension journey is really just where all those light codes are coming online through what we call the unity grid of divine love. And of course, with that, then, that those same codes of light are igniting within our own individual light bodies, what we also call the I Am Avatar light body or I Am Avatar blueprints. So since we connected, I think it was in August, we went through just a huge eclipse energy, which opened a stargate into higher dimensional octave frequencies and also cleared, from a planetary perspective, some of the lower frequency energies that were still around the planet from a galactic perspective as we aligned into the galactic center. And I think we entered through there into the Syrian portal of the divine heart frequency, which amplified through our own divine hearts. And many of us at that time then received the resurrection code. So in this ascension process, and of course, the whole focus for all of us is really that we've traveled through all these timelines and integrated so many of these golden ages of light in remembrance, but primarily in frequency, which is activating the dormant DNA to a point of full merge and integration with, whether we call it our higher self, our beloved I Am Presence, and our monadic core group. And so that really has been experienced by various light workers over the time, probably from about 2012, when we were really able to experience more of the photonic ray frequencies spiraling forth, the cosmic ray frequencies, and of course, so much that was actually also going on too, in terms of whether we call it Metatronic consciousness or simply Christ consciousness. It really doesn't matter. So this then has been lifting all life into a greater sense of feeling and experiencing the flame of divine love, which was really just anchored and activated through the December solstice by the Divine Mother. So for that point, I felt so much of our work was really, it wasn't out there as such, but it was really about a lot of soul travel. It was about the integration of the dormant DNA through our multi-dimensional selves, which is still ongoing for so many of us, actually. But the point now of experiencing the flame of the Divine Mother within our own crafted hearts is really, in essence, truly being these flames of divine love, of co-creators to the divine. And this is the experience now of truly coming home. And I had that experience in the end of August. I integrated into my beloved I Am presence. So this really was for me just an incredible experience of feeling myself in this essence of unity and divine love with all these angelic beings. It was just the sense truly of completely coming home. It was just an incredibly amazing experience. And then I was downloaded, I guess, with what you would call the energetic divine blueprint of what I needed to do in terms of my service work to really focus on what needed to be done on this planet and what I needed to create the shifts within my own body. So that was really the sense of truly coming home. And that's such a large part of this work, truly coming home, being present as a conscious co-creator within our own bodies, within our own light bodies, as these flames of divinity, co-creating with the divine, being of service to Mother Earth and all her life. And in that template then that I received, it was both on a planetary perspective, and then it was also a personal perspective about coming into my body and really feeling that there were areas of discomfort that I needed to work on, which was quite interesting. You know, it made me realize to that point that there was always an aspect of my consciousness that hadn't been fully integrated. Because it was, you know, if we fully integrated, we don't experience those moments of alignment or misalignment, or those moments of being ungrounded, or those moments where we're still driven by our emotions to possibly be eating the wrong foods because we are still working with or integrating, you know, particular frequencies or feelings that may feel uncomfortable, that we might want to hide or, you know, not quite process or not fully embrace within our Christ-at hearts. So it was such an interesting moment for me in terms of actually realizing that a part of me had actually felt disillusioned, that had been actually so tired, like many of us light workers, having had to work so hard for so many years in being these physical vessels of love upon this planet, and yet from an outward perspective or outward appearance, we haven't really seen much change upon the sacred earth. Of course, it's huge amounts of change has gone on energetically that we've all been experiencing as we come deeper into our own sensitivity as these energetically sensitive souls. And with that, of course, amplifying our own unique extrasensory perception gifts. The biggest one for all of us being that gift of empathy, and beyond that, that gift of telepathy, that ability to not only hear and experience the thoughts and feelings of one another, of friends, but also the ability to experience a clearer level of communication as conduits with the beings of light from on high, and with our own beloved I Am presence, or following that intuition, following that guidance. So in that download for me, if you'd like to call it, wasn't really a download. I'm not channeling as such anymore. It's like all the information is just there. I call it more downloads. I received, you know, in that moment, the map of what I needed to create with the angels, called this angel tools for parents and children. And I had just been working on that a little bit part-time, sort of seeing it as a part-time project. And the divine inspiration I received was so deep, I didn't sleep for weeks. It was such a huge amount of inspiration and passion coming through that it kept me going on this high for weeks. And of course, towards the end of it, I really just, apart from the fact that I needed to write, you know, I just needed to get to put all these ideas onto paper. You know, after a while, I was certainly a little bit energetically tired, not finding that level of sleep, because every time I moved into that deep space of meditation, it was, I would see another page, and I would see another page, and I would see something else that needed to be written or needed to be completed. So it was just really an amazing time, but also it was a time of trust. It was a time of letting go of the way that I had been working, the way that I'd been doing these incredible, beautiful transmissions, which I truly love too. Traveling with these galactic beings and working. My work really has been so much about working with, apart from the angels and the archangels, it's the Christed extraterrestrials, and I've been putting together these incredible monthly tele-webinars or summits on the teachings of the Eye of Horus, taking us through the left and right eye of Horus and these temple teachings. And I think it just accelerated into a different way through that. But that trust was also to know that, you would be provided for, that the abundance was there, and stepping into that blueprint requires us to simply listen to the universe, to know that there is a divine plan and that we are part of it more than anything else. And how can the universe be wrong? And I think it's really our own fears that come up. And, once I call it ascend, once we take on those resurrection codes, it's just a deeper sense of that divine love expanding from within us, that flame of divine love, and deeper levels of clarity in truth and resonance and love, and really just no one or anything to blame. So we're still stuck with what we're working with. What I found for me is that part of my grief just didn't disappear overnight, or my personality didn't just disappear overnight. That's really a big one too. A lot of us imagine, well, if I'm integrating into my soul consciousness, what is happening to me? Am I, as this personality, going to, suddenly become void of the character of who I am? Actually, what happens is your character becomes enriched, because the personality is an aspect of the soul consciousness. And interestingly enough, what came through at that time for me was also the understanding that the personality isn't the ego that we often associate, that we say it's the negative ego is our personality aspect, which was so interesting to us realize.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Is an aspect of the soul.
Right.
But the ego really embracing that wounded soul aspect, what we call the ego, actually just takes us deeper into the integration of the personality to the soul consciousness. But we will still always have a personality.
Oh, that's really interesting. And that's heartwarming to hear, actually, because yeah, you're right. I think so many of us think, are we just going to be this void? But I love that description. That's incredible, Anrita. So this would be, just to clarify, the experience that you went through last August, it would be what we call full ascension in this planetary ascension matrix that we're going through. This is when you liberate from Earth's reincarnation cycle and become enlightened?
To a degree, I perceive it to be ongoing. Even what we talk about, Ariella, as the fifth dimension, there's so many dimensions beyond this dimension, and the next one, and the next one, and we all still, that light frequency is still increasing all the time. Yeah. So, that crystalline matrix, that crystalline structure, we still continue to work with and integrate aspects of, the pain, the suffering, whether it's from taking on through the karmic experience of taking this on for humanity, or through just our own perceived cellular clearing of the trauma that we have experienced through our own unique experiences. But yes, in terms of being fully integrated in the consciousness of light, of being co-creators, that's really essentially what we are all moving into. Some people are calling it, it's an eminent aspect of the consciousness manifestation of divine love in form that is experienced by all of us. And, people are really talking about it now in terms of this is, it's an event happening, but it's not an event happening. It's just the collective consciousness has lifted to that level where we are going to collectively start to experience this planetary ascension.
Wow. So this is been what we have waited for a long time now, a long time.
Eons.
So just to, I just want to demystify some of the language which is being used here, because I think a lot of it is saying the same thing, but can we just get clear on a few points? So I am avatar, I am presence, soul consciousness, Christ consciousness. Could you explain what these are to the viewers?
Absolutely. Well, we often talk about the Adam Kadmon body of light, which is also, we call this the I am avatar consciousness body of light. This is our divine blueprint, and this is what we are becoming. But the soul consciousness is what we integrate in the becoming. So if you want to think of the I am avatar blueprint or the Adam Kadmon blueprint, it's our divine, original divine ASAP blueprint, which I perceive to be within the perineum center. This is related to our original divine ASAP blueprint, that doesn't change when all our cells, divide and replicate every 5 to 7 years. This original blueprint is what we come through, which of course on the one side creates the genetic structure, and the other side, it's really part of our soul contract, our service work, that expands into different levels of remembrance. And that's what we're activating all the time through the dormant DNA. So the first part of this journey that we've all had to come into the knowing of ourselves as love, as star seeds, as these multidimensional humans. And there's, of course, earth seeds. There's a lot of people that haven't experienced different planets and stars, but they're also awakened light workers and way showers. We call them earth seeds, where they've just spent a large part of their incarnations lifting the consciousness of this planet or other earth planets. But for many of us that are star seeds, we've experienced incarnation on different planets and stars, whether this is the Pleiades or Sirius or Andromeda Arcturus, and we feel a deep resonance and connection. So that initial part to these star beings, so that initial part of our awakening and remembrance usually takes us into that connection once more to our star family. That's the initial part of our reunion of hearts. And at the same time, then we're integrating what we call the monadic aspect of our consciousness, which is the connection. Then I see our higher self and our beloved I am presence as the higher self being the formation of the soul cluster of 12 souls, of which we are one, and our beloved I am presence, I am that I am, of 144 souls. But once again, that keeps going, it multiplies in 12. So it's just really ongoing as all these dimensions and systems of energies are. And whether we take pi and we cut it into 9 slices or 12 slices or 36 slices or 144 slices, it really doesn't matter. What we brought to the table is just different energy systems saying the same thing. Absolutely. So we're talking here the integration of the soul consciousness in the creation of the crystalline light body as these Christ consciousness beings. And we reach that state of Christ consciousness or unity consciousness when we are able to embrace and release a lot of those fears within our body, when we drop density, because the fears within our body, we walk for a long time, the karmic timelines and the crisis timelines. So those fears, those hurts, those betrayals, those angers that we have experienced in each unique experience, to remember that we are love because we're really love. And also through that, to actually understand the full range of human emotion. Because how can we assist others if we haven't experienced grief and sadness and pain? And once we have taken that on and collectively embraced it and accepted it and loved it and seen our fear as part of our family and what it teaches us, and just love it too within our loving hearts, that too changes those feelings of, and particularly release blame, for example, release judgment. When there's no one to blame and there's nothing to judge, we find a different level then of happiness and joy within our own life, because we can't say my unhappiness is based on the fact of so-and-so has done this to me, or my lack of joy is based on the fact that this and this is happening in my life. Once we just accept and appreciate every single experience and what it teaches us, no matter how uncomfortable, that's when we really start to find ourselves on this path of divine love. And that's what we ask to do. So each unique experience is just the universe giving us an opportunity to love ourselves more.
And Rita, you have such a huge amount of knowledge and experience on this topic, having gone through the ascension process yourself. I know it's ongoing, but I wondered, for the viewers listening, I know that they would really appreciate having a bit of structure and understanding what some of the various stages are of the ascension process. Are you able to give us some illumination on that, please?
Absolutely, Ariella. What I thought, in fact, would be quite nice is we can talk about something called the light body, or the I am avatar blueprint templates, because this is something that we all experience in this ascension journey, no matter what stage we are. So in this first level, of course, we all come through as these awakened souls, and these pre-birth agreements then once more being made to experience both the karmic timelines and then, of course, what we call the Christed timelines. So the pre-birth agreements that we've made include karmic agreements, which at this higher light level are with souls usually that truly love us and that we play out the victim and persecutor consciousness roles with, until this point of, coming back into the remembrance and knowing of ourselves as love, or just the ignition of the dormant DNA and those light codes. And so the connection to the company of heaven and our beloved I am presence is always there. But we experience this plane of polarity and perceived separation for the very lessons that it actually teaches us to come into the knowing once more of ourselves as love. And as I said, to assist in lifting the consciousness of all life, but with this too, to deepen into the next level of our soul's blossoming and magnificence and light. So this first level, we're experiencing a lot of this brain chemistry changes. This is a recalibration between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. We're seeing the DNA start to activate this dormant DNA, these etheric DNA strands. And this is really what many of us experience as awakening. Suddenly in this first level of awakening, we often have possibly either, there's the vision or the connection or the sense of connecting to our soul family, our star family, or to our higher self in some way or another. And this starts us on this path of, it's really often moving through the dark soul, sorry, not the dark soul, what we call the night of the dark soul.
Yeah.
So yes, where we move then into just a sense of perceived change within our own lives and what that brings for us. So this is the first stage where we start to clear these old identities and false beliefs based at that point onto who we perceive we are, because we often perceive we are a job, or we are mom, or we are dad, not really, stepping into the roles of actually recognizing ourselves as these flames of divinity. So we're awakening to that. We're awakening to the knowing that we are more than. And that's that first level that starts to clear for us. And we experience too at this time many of these ascension symptoms. I know that my awakening occurred for me in my mid-20s. And I had been reading a Pleiadian workbook, and suddenly I experienced this quantum transfiguration chamber of light brought in around me, this multi-dimensional, multicolored, rectangular light chamber. And I felt very strongly these light laser frequencies moving through me. And I saw then in my mind's eye this beautiful being that was that looked like a golden sun. And this was Ra from the angelic league of the Pleiadian emissary, saying, come back home. You're one of us, this Pleiadian emissary. So it was quite a beautiful reconnection in that way. But of course, at that time, and I was still quite young, and finding myself and finding my identity, you're still going, who, me?
Yes.
So it's really the start of our journey. I don't know how your awakening process was, that initial awakening process for you, if you might want to share it with us.
Yeah, quite different than yours, quite different. Mine happened through my Saturn return when I was about 29, and mine was a rock bottom that I went through, and it was a dark night of the soul. And just many, the way that I was living my life and all the belief systems that I had just kind of came crashing down. And I got some messages that came through, ways in which I needed to change my life. And for me, and you will understand this as a starseed, although I know our journeys have been different, I was having to self-medicate a lot of the time with alcohol at that time, because I was really experiencing reality very differently than a lot of other people. And I was also picking up on invisible beings around me, but I thought it was me going crazy. So my rock bottom actually took me into recovery. And that's where I connected, first of all, with spirituality. But my multidimensional awakening happened later for me when I was 36. And that's when the two star beings came into my bedroom. So, yeah, very different. Yeah.
Yes, but also quite similar because, of course, until that time, I also had a lot of questions, you know, which, of course, is part of this ascension process as well. And this is actually in the second level where we're still asking, you know, why am I here? Who am I? You know, what is my purpose? This is into the second level of the creation of our light body as we reconnect deeper into the soul matrix. But also, you know, as energetically sensitive souls, I also went through alcoholic abuse in my early 20s,
Right.
and you know, I became quite sick and, you know, very energetically sensitive, and like food allergies and the inability to digest life.
Right. Yeah. Very similar.
You know, my journey started actually working with her. Yeah, and probably, you know, for so many of us, because it's just, you know, we have that sense of being different, don't we?
Yes.
I remember for the beings used to chuckle and they'd say to me, well, you are alien. You know, so it's like we're looking on one level through these alien eyes at, you know, those around us. And at that initial stage, of course, we just need to work a lot on ourselves, that personal process, rather than sort of being on service. When we're in service, we're sort of embodying more the energy of the, you know, the mother, father, queen, king archetypal energy. But in that initial stage, it's really just getting through the day to
absolutely,
you know, just find our own balance and to be able to work with those energetic sensitivities on so many different levels.
Absolutely. It took me a long time between my rock bottom when I was 29 and my multidimensional awakening when I was 36. It took me a long time. Many different deep healings had to occur in order for me to embrace that I was multidimensional. Before then, it would have absolutely scared the hell out of me, and I wouldn't have been ready to look at it. So it's we're all experiencing it uniquely. But I know you came from an environment where your parents were already spiritually awake, weren't they? Whereas I didn't have that experience at all.
Yes, in many ways, I think it was a blessing. I grew up in an Eastern school of thought where we meditated and we chanted Sanskrit, and we had weekend camps and read the Upanishads and, you know, as I said, chanted in Sanskrit. But of course, for me as a child and a teenager, that's really what I didn't want.
Right, okay.
You know, I wanted music. So it was quite suppressed on the other side, and you know, I became a very rebellious teenager, that black sheep that we talked about, and you know, the school, rebellious at school, rebellious in my own home, a very difficult teenager until my early 20s, where I just really, you know, moved a lot more into my own journey and alignment with the divine. But it would take me years, to many years. And I think no matter where we are, we're just always deepening into that experience of knowing ourselves as love. And I think the biggest one initially there too is recognizing ourselves as worthy, because we have such a deep-seated sense of perceived separation through our experiences that really also create, you know, this trauma at a cellular level. And this big one for all of us, the false belief that comes up is one of unworthiness, that I am not worthy.
Absolutely.
So it was really when these star beings were coming to me too, and, you know, expressing how worthy I was, that's how I was going, who me, you know, because who am I? I'm this unworthy nobody.
Yes.
You know, that's really just where our consciousness is when at that stage, you know, we're just absorbing the energy of people around us, because that's sort of been played out and reflected into so many of those realities on one level.
Absolutely. I completely relate to that. And I think that is very well put. And I'm sure our viewers will massively relate to this. I mean, when I went through the sort of bigger multidimensional awakening and the star beings appeared and I got all of these messages that came through. It was this like, who, me, you know, like complete disbelief. And I remember, I mean, I was, and I'm still with my twin flame. It was partly to do with our relationship that this came online for me. But a couple of days later, I drove down to a very close friend of mine, to her house, and I told her about what had happened. And I was going through, I had this really big decision to make. Am I going to leave corporate and to set out on this new path and follow what I'm receiving and what I'm being shown my mission is? Or am I going crazy and making this all up? And I spent all day, you know, with my twin flame or with my best friend, like going, is this really me? Is this possible? You know, so I think that is such a valuable point. And I know many of our viewers will have had that experience.
And are still working with it. You know, that's the really biggest one that stops us from experiencing our full divinity is, you know, those subconscious patternings and conditionings of the perceived trauma. And when I came fully into my body last August, that sense of unification with my beloved I am presence, part of what I experienced within my body was a great level of discomfort through these unique experiences. And what the angelic beings were saying, they were saying, you know, what we're needing to do is move the body energetically, because it's the stress and trauma, even though we know there's possibly no blame or, you know, judgment, there's still the stress and trauma, not only with these frozen miasms around the body and energy field that we're releasing, false beliefs and judgments, but also actually the stress itself, which creates for us, you know, the lower back, the shoulders, the neck areas of big discomfort apart from the physical body organs itself. And they started to show me these energetic movements where it was almost like shimmy movements and working with the psoas, which is the muscle of the soul, which connects the hips and the pelvic area, and that part of the body to gain strength and flexibility within that, but also to be able to do these sort of shimmy movements and jigging the body into different areas to actually release that trauma that's actually held in different parts of the body. So just amazing, incredible things that are coming through. But that's really also sometimes why we can't step fully into good health, is because we're holding those traumatic cellular memories with cells themselves.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. So at that stage that we were just talking about, when you start to go through the awakening process and you realize that there's much more to life than you realize, how would you be describing that in terms of the ascension process? Is that when you first start to merge?
That merging is integrating. So you're increasing then at that stage, we talked at that time about light and love quotients, but really it's essentially, if you think about your awakening process, that next level is process work. So that second level of the creation of the I Am Avatar Blueprint is really where you're starting to connect. And I remember doing every morning I would do a 5-minute meditation where I was just connecting to my beloved I am presence, my soul light, and just breathing that energy through my body, visualizing the anticorona, the fluorescent tube of light or that bridge of light, and just breathing my light into my body. So that was a huge part of that connection then into the creation of our own beloved I am avatar consciousness of light, is really starting to know that you have the skills and tools to work with these false beliefs and judgments. So you're not really at that stage, you know, there's still a lot of questions. There's still, why am I here? What am I meant to do? But that's the time when we also start to connect into workshops and to groups, and we're looking around because we're looking for spiritual facilitators and teachers to help us to, you know, clear this. And that work actually keeps going no matter through the stages that we go for a long time, really, where we're doing, whether it's inner child work or past life work or regression work or working through the chakras, while at the same time we, you know, activating the Kundalini energy, and we're clearing out through each one of the chakras. And that's that second level. If you remember, I know for me, I remember just being tired. I was doing a huge amount of clearing work, and I was eating a lot of protein. I was vegetarian at the time, And I put on about 10 kilograms, 20 plus pounds, where I was just needing on one level to be safe in my body, because I was dealing with a lot of clearing work for me, and also it was abuse and sexual abuse and emotional abuse, and I needed to feel safe. And we'll probably have that for many light workers in that initial stage, or in different stages. It depends on what the light body is needing. And in fact, I can say that the same for my diet, into different levels, where I've experienced at different stages eating white protein, eating chicken and eating fish. And at other times, eating nuts. At other times, just having salad and fruit. It's really the different stages of what your body is needing. And more than anything, it's just honoring that. That's personally what I've found that. So for me at that point, it was really just honoring my body and, just allowing this weight to feel that energetic safety while I was working with whatever I was working with. And because I was also energetically so tired, I was sleeping up to 15, 16 hours a day in my journey, and working the rest of the time with this core group and all these beings to create so many shifts and changes in the body. And you would feel it. You can actually feel along the spine, the cerebral spinal fluid starting to move, and you would have a lot of pains. That's when we get a lot of neck pains and ascension symptoms and back pains, and really needing to move the body and moving the energy, because that's now when that's starting to flow. That hasn't flown quite like that way before.
Yeah, I also absolutely relate to the weight changes. Oh my goodness. And different needing different foods at different times. And also the physical symptoms. I believe, I see the structure a little bit differently, because I think we all attract different models to help us to go through the ascension process. But I think I understand the stage that you're talking about. And for me, this was when I was first in the caravan. So this is a couple of years ago now. And I pretty much, it was amazing, because I was in this caravan in Glastonbury, which was just the best place to put me, because I was so sensitive. I was finding it very difficult to be around people. I had to spend a lot of time on my own. And I pretty much just spent a whole year just lying on my camper bed in my caravan, researching. And thank goodness for online programs, and this is why it's one of my absolute gifts to create this summit for viewers, because there's no way I could have gone to workshops at that time. There's no way I could have mixed with lots of different energies. I was having body rushes, every single day. And just, my emotions were completely, out on stalks. So I just had to really keep my reality very small at that time. There was only certain people that I could be around. Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely understand that. I went through, it felt like lifetimes and lifetimes of change. What we're doing then is that we're now moving into the third level. So this is really at the same time that we're experiencing all these changes, that we're also starting to develop then our own extrasensory perception gifts. So this is the third level, where the subatomic particles start to spin in that increased light frequency. So we're still going through really intense ascension process or ascension symptoms, and I think it really is ongoing to some degree for quite some time, particularly in those initial stages when we make so many changes. But what starts to happen too is that we're developing deeper levels of our own extrasensory perception gifts, and the knowing that we're here in service in love. So the DNA itself then is starting to act into being both the receiver and transmitter of the light frequencies within our own energy field. And that then allows us to deepen into our own intuition, deepen into the wisdom that we have. Although at that stage, we're still not completely in our own power. I remember it took me many years, if I look back at that time, to actually essentially be in my own power. And, people would intentionally or unintentionally still take advantage. And there was actually an incredible amount of joy in that initial stage for me, just that just that sense of reunion with the soul and star family and angelic beings, but not quite being in my power, not able to say no to people, not able to express myself completely and fully, and also still a perceived sense of I should be light. So you're still playing a little bit. You're in the ego, the ego aspect still. This is not about the ego. This is just a perceived sense of where you would like to be and where you actually are and how you're putting yourself across. So there's still a lot of that imbalance that we experience. We want everyone to, this is still approval. We're still at the approval stage. We're wanting everyone to like us and to appreciate us. But of course, we can never really be seen by everyone around us. And part of that then is actually taking your own power back, having your own voice, a deeper level of your authentic self. And that is starting to activate just a little bit more at this third level as the subatomic particles increase in this light frequency. And as we just deeper into these downloads, I call them sort of downloads or greater levels of knowing and wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, the extrasensory perception, it has, and I know you will get this, it has always been there. Like I can look back now as a child and I can see that I was always very sensitive to things. But like I said, for me, I was very confused about what that was. And I thought that I was going a bit crazy. So when I went through my multidimensional awakening when I was 36, I had a lot of psychic phenomena that just happened and it just came online very quickly for me. And it was like, okay, I'm going to be fully psychic now and I'm going to have to sort of prepare myself for this. And then it's sort of like nothing happened for a while. And I was like, oh, okay, where's it gone? And then, so that's really been my journey. There's been stages of integration where it feels like nothing is happening. And then like something comes online. Yeah. I will get a download. I will have a dream. I will have visitations. So yeah, it really goes in stages. And I think like with what you were saying there about coming into your power, I think that can be quite confusing for a lot of us because people are like, well, where's my magic gone? Or why isn't it happening? But it is happening. It's just happening behind the scenes, right?
Very much so on the inner planes. It's like you talk about that plateau where it feels like you're in this eternal now moment, this bubble, where from an outward perspective, everything just seems to be the same day in and day out. And then sometimes can go on for weeks or months and in some cases for years. But so much is happening energetically and on the inner planes. Yeah. Right now where we are, is much further than this process that we're going through and talking about, where we're actually forming these, we're really connected so much on the inner planes. The spiritual facilitators, the teachers, the students, we attending these schools of learning and these ashrams of light where we're all just having one inner plane cosmic party being downloaded with so many of these light codes and knowings and just waking up with this information and knowing. But even when I'm going back to that time, it was a lot less of us, I think, that were really at that awakened stage. And for many people initially, and of course, this is still a process that's ongoing for many light workers just waking up, is that perceived sense of being lonely or being isolated or not being understood or not being heard, not being appreciated. This really is, just part of that process that we actually do go through. And the biggest gift that we can give ourselves is just accept that actually that's part of that wounded soul aspect that is just being integrated, because that love is there on the inner planes, that connection is there on the inner planes. And, we are also greatly appreciated and celebrated and deeply loved. So absolutely. In the beginning, it's maybe just a mental process. But if we just take it at one, I love you at a time, just saying to ourselves every day how much we love ourselves and just letting go of judgment, I feel is very useful too. Just loving ourselves no matter where we are, no matter what we look like, no matter what's going on in our lives, just loving and accepting.
Absolutely. And also having the courage of our own, of what we are experiencing. and standing in our power with that. Because, yeah, when I went through my multidimensional awakening, everything changed for me. I was in corporate, then suddenly I'm in a caravan in Glastonbury. You know, I was a purchasing manager, and now I'm a starseed. You know, and it's like loads of people that I was once friends with, all of my community, it just dropped out. All of it dropped out. And it was me, my twin flame, my dog, and actually my mum did come along for the journey. And things have come back. You know, people have come back into my life, and then new people, new communities, new friendships have come into my life. But there was a massive transition period where the old was falling away. And I know that's the same for many of our viewers. It's
big time. Yeah, where you're dropping friendships, you're moving countries, you know, moving to where you need to be, and you're still doing a huge amount of work on yourself. And in that fourth level too, there's also, you get a lot of intense headaches and, you know, third eye chakra activations or base chakra sacral work, because the kundalini is still rising, and it can only move the kundalini energy, or it's the healing energy through the body, when you've released a lot of those false beliefs and judgments. And for us, a lot of that has been played out between the male and female dynamics. So it's releasing a lot of the false beliefs around men, for example, or a lot of false beliefs around women, even at that time. So as well as obviously, you know, releasing those around us that really are no longer serving us in a way that we are deserving of. And we still often don't quite have that strength. We have that knowing of, I don't want to be with this person, or they don't see me, or don't appreciate me, or don't love me in a way that I know I'm deserving. But there's still so many fears of leaving or creating that change for ourselves. But as you're saying, part of that is so much too then about coming into deeper levels of empowerment. And that's what we start to experience in this fifth level, in this creation of our I Am Avatar blueprint. So in this fifth level, as we start to merge into a greater sense of non-linear time, we're connecting more to the soul group, into our multidimensional selves. So we're connecting more greatly now into the heart chakra, into this threefold flame of empowerment, love, and wisdom. And that's when we're able to also really just release these old relationships that aren't working for us, and come into the forgiveness of self, which is really, it's forgiving ourselves for imagining that we were anything less than love. You know, once we forgive ourselves, it's not even important to forgive others for what we perceive that they did to us, because in that forgiveness, all there is love. And, you know, possibly we can extend it to forgiving those that we actually hurt along the way. If we'd like, we can connect with them energetically, and we're still also cutting a lot of these old energy cords, akka cords, you know, old relationship cords to those that are no longer serving us. But this forgiveness starts to become a very big one. I remember doing a lot of work around this, and it really took me years actually to realize, you know, even in my divorce, and I had a lot of terrible things happen in part of my pre-birth agreements that I chose with my ex-husband and our children. And I remember in the beginning stages of like saying, I can't forgive him for what he's done to the children. I can forgive him for what he's done to me. And then it was like this revelation where the limit beings was saying, there's nothing to forgive. You've released the blame. There's no judgment anymore. And all it is to forgive yourself for imagining that you were anything less than love. And when you can do that, if you want, you can forgive, you know, him for what you perceive he did, but you don't need to. You just need to forgive yourself.
Yes, I remember speaking to you in the first season about, your experience that you went through there. Very intense indeed. Forgiveness has been massive in my life as well. I used to be somebody who really held on to resentment. I found it energetically almost impossible to until I learned about energy management and protection, how to clear my field. You know, I was just walking around with all of these hurts and wounds all the time. So a good forgiveness process and a good forgiveness ritual has helped me so much over the years, just to let go of this density and to carry more light, to be able to embody more light. It's so important in the process.
And for me, actually, what I've found works really, really well is deep breathing. You know, this breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose or mouth. And you can breathe in love and you can breathe out whatever needs to be released. Or you can breathe in love and breathe out love. And then you breathe in love and you hold the breath, and then you breathe out the anger or the resentment or whatever it is. And it's just such a powerful process. And this, the longer you hold the breath, the more that you can actually release that. So when you're going through something, when you're actually still stuck in that anger, you know, people are pushing your buttons or something's happened and you're just stuck in blame and or victim and persecutor consciousness, you know, just take that feeling because it's showing you something. It's reacting because it needs to be given a voice. So you give it a voice by taking it into your loving heart and saying, I'm here for you. I accept you. I hear you. I give you a voice to be heard, surrounded in my love. And then you can do some deep breathing, because for me, that is just such an incredible breath. And then the last breath is that you breathe in and out as though sucking through a straw, and it completely releases in a line. So you're just going, and it's very powerful, those three breaths together, to actually just be able to, you know, just tame some of those emotions that really come up. And particularly when you're around the person, it's not always when you're thinking about someone, but, you know, when you're in that energy, you know, it's like even with my own kids, I see sometimes they, whatever they're upset, or my son will start to shout, and it's like that energy of anger, and that fiery energy just jumps onto you. And your first thought is, first feeling is that you want to also be shouting. If I shout louder, will he hear? Funny, you know. So really, it's
sometimes
like
works.
giving us this. Yes.
Fire and fire. No, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful technique that you've just shared. So thank you for that.
So really just all of this is about finding our own way, isn't it? And finding a way to just embrace our own feelings, and to finding a way just to love ourselves and accept ourselves. This is really what we're doing here. When we move into the sixth level of this light body blueprint, we actually start to deepen now into the unity grid, because we've come to a sense of that we're actually not alone, and we start to move into what we call the I am avatar consciousness of light. This I am avatar consciousness is actually the higher light of all awakened souls on the sacred earth. And if you imagine it, apart from this net of light around the unity grid, around the sacred earth, these things of light, and particularly geometries and ley lines and vortices and vortexes, as we know, the chakras of Mother Earth, her vortices or chakras actually connect into ours as well. We're really connected into this holographic universe, and everything that's happened on the earth actually affects us, and everything that happens, of course, with us affects the consciousness of the earth as well. So we're so connected, but we come deeper into recognizing that connection on a planetary level, not only in terms of what's going on and how we're affected energetically, and often even what's happening in our own countries, how we're affected by that consciousness, and each country having its own consciousness net as such, but also, of course, just deepening into the I am avatar blueprints within the New Earth templates through so much of this light work that is done by many light workers around the grid, around the globe. And this is how we start to deepen into that sense of coming together in unity. And we use, of course, a lot of the planetary events and activities of light to deepen into that through the eclipses, through the solstices, through the equinoxes, these incredible events. But also the biggest gift that we're all developing is this gift of empathy. And that really is how we're perceiving then so much of what is going on energetically. And there's a lot of people that are soul readers that are reading the energy of the planet, and they share that. You know, really, when we have all these solar eclipses and the lunar eclipses, and if we're energetically sensitive, we can feel into how those energies are affecting us and how those energies are affecting the earth. And even things that are happening in our own countries. For example, recently in February, we had the resignation of President Zuma, president in our country, here in South Africa, who so many people wanted out for such a very, very long time. and, just jubilation and just feeling that energy energetically, and, that hope and that inspiration. And I remember I lived also in the UK for many years, and it was the time that Princess Diana passed away.
Yeah.
And I was actually living in Chelsea at that time, and it was very close to, it was in the UK and in London, and it was just, just the sadness and feeling that collective sadness and feeling that grief, just so powerful, just so very, very powerful.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, this interconnectedness with all and with our planet. I mean, going back to the energy hotspots, I think that is just such an exciting stage of the awakening process, when you realize that you can work with the planetary energies. And as this summit's going out in March, we've got some very, very high frequencies coming on, and waves of consciousness coming onto the planet. So, it's like you just follow your intuition. And I just followed, there was a date that was given to me to do this summit. And I didn't realize there'd be a huge amount going on planetary wise as everybody's getting activated watching the summit. It's awesome.
Oh, big time, big time, big time. And then the next level that we move into here is the 7th level, where we really now starting to focus deeper on self-love, where it's moving into non-judgment of self and deeper levels of the expression of our authentic self, and the desire to be of service as our own gifts are emerging. So this is really then we're coming into also greater levels of, what is my service work? What is my heart's dreaming? What is my heart's passion? How can I take this out and reach others? And we're also experiencing, there's 2 things that are happening at this level. It's greater levels of heart palpitations, where we kind of feel almost like just this thumping energetically upon the heart chakra, and that is because it's releasing a lot of the fear. So these heart palpitations are a very big one that we experience at this level, because this is love versus fear all the time, as we're experiencing this alignment and misalignment to the divine. And the other thing that we're experiencing here is a real big recalibration of the pineal gland. The pineal gland itself is sort of shifting up in frequency, and it's having this light, spiritual light, just soaking it up and spreading it out into just great levels of intuition and telepathy and connection and reconnection and unity, and all of that, apart from it being experienced to some degree through the pineal and the hypothalamus and thalamus glands, because we're experiencing this flow of energy through the cerebrospinal fluid that connects into that from the spinal cord into the brain and into the brain waves, synaptic elements of the brain. This pineal gland is one that is actually causing huge changes for us energetically.
And I don't know whether it's part of this stage or not, but something that I noticed when I first started integrating the monad, which is otherwise called the I am presence, is the chakra at the base of my skull, the medulla oblongata, I think it's called, really started fizzing.
Okay. Yes.
So I don't know, is that this stage or is that another stage?
Well, that's really, again, some of these are overlapping all the time, because these are part of the ascension symptoms, or the changes, energetic changes in the creation of the light body. The light body itself, of course, is the subatomic particles spinning in increased light particles of crystalline consciousness. So changing from the carbon into the silica. This is what we're having here. And this expression of crystalline consciousness then is really just all the cells absorbing the light of Christ consciousness, and, experiencing that in the sense of being fully integrated in the physical body as a co-creator to the divine. So we're really creating, this is an ongoing process of our body is morphing and shifting and energetically holding more light, because really to bring the energy of our higher self, or our soul consciousness into the body, it's not going to come into a body that isn't at a frequency of light that's sustaining to it. It wouldn't be able to sustain it. So all the changes we're making as these multidimensional humans It's really to support the physical body, because that's the process. It's not so much about, because all the time we're traveling anyway on the inner planes, and we are experiencing stargates, and we're experiencing golden ages, and we're activating the DNA, and it's all about bringing it back into the physical body. The physical body is our temple of light. And that's in essence what we're doing, is that we are creating the physical body as the temple of light. This is this whole process. Absolutely. So this next level, you know, what we're receiving now is when you're talking about this, I actually remember that I worked for many years, and I still do, with etheric medical teams and angelic etheric medical teams, working with the cerebral spinal fluid, working with this, you know, kind of neck area, and doing this craniosacral work, putting my head to one side and the other side, and sometimes sitting with it back for hours at a time. And that is actually quite uncomfortable, but it's an incredible feeling if you put your head back. And then you lift it up after a few minutes to actually be experiencing that energetic and physical sensation of spiritual light moving up and down through the body, as well as releasing a lot of the tension and stress that we get on the shoulder and neck area. So just amazing work that, you know, that I also did a lot of this work with many of these etheric medical teams. So a lot of people may be guided into that. And this now we receiving a deeper sense of just, you know, the memory of wisdom, of knowing. So it's like we're either having premonitions, or even when we don't, we're having moments still of that lapse of memory where we just can't remember anything. But when we need to know, the memory is just there. It's so funny for me, even in the simplest things. For example, I might put the oven on, and then I'm rushing around doing something else, and a little thought is coming into my head, switch the oven off.
Yeah.
I'll go, oh, thank you.
Yes.
You know, it's like when I need to know something, I'm given that knowing. I mean, that's a silly example, but, you know, on everything, it doesn't matter. Intuitively, and connecting with people and communicating with people, it's you deepening into conscious communication on different levels. Because we're now moving into this 9th level, where we're reconnecting deeper levels to the energy of our beloved I Am Presence, and experiencing the multidimensional bodies. And in the system of energy, we work with 9 dimensions, where we create these multidimensional bodies from the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th levels. And the chakras are starting to merge into one unified column of light. So this is where we could say a lot of us are at this point now, where we're releasing the remaining of this lesser than and better than consciousness, as we come really into this point of recognizing ourselves as these flames of divinity and co-creators to the divine. And with that, listening to the universe. There's not so much a time now of always asking questions. There's a time just of listening and receiving this information in complete surrender. So this is the point that we talk about, of this trust and surrender to the divine.
Yes. Trust and surrender, and having huge amounts of faith is very important. How did you experience this stage then, Anrita, in your personal journey?
Well, you know, I mean, of course, it's just throughout the time. So I've been a full-time light worker, if you want to call it that, since my mid-20s. So, you know, there have been, I think, journeys when there's been a large portion of abundance, and other times where I've lived rather humbly. But within that, there's always been the trust. From my perspective, it's something that I've just had. You know, it doesn't stop sometimes the stress or the small voice coming up, but I haven't had that since, you know, for some time. And even as I explained, that big shift in consciousness last year, that, you know, took me into a new way of being and a new flow. This is what we're all coming into too, into just a deeper flow of doing our spiritual work, of being of service, but without that need where we have to work the 8-hour day or the 10-hour day or the 12-hour day, whatever it may be, to be able to meet our, you know, financial needs. So this really is also not only this trust and surrender, but it's also the magnetization and manifestation of magnetizing to us what we are needing, and also drawing to us those that can benefit from our skills and gifts, and you know what we're sharing and putting out there. So it's really on one level, you know, recognizing that you know, that again, there is this divine plan. But the other level is really just coming from this aspect of always just being humble, of always sharing. No matter how much we have or no matter how little we have, it's always to be sharing that with others. That's always really just been how I've lived my life, just giving as much as I can and being open to receive as much as I can. And being an open heart, I think, is really a big one, particularly for us women, that we're much better at giving than we are at receiving. And a lot of people also in the spiritual community, they either perceive that they shouldn't charge maybe for, you know, their gifts and skills and what they're sharing. And there's those that judge them for charging. You know, it's really just an imbalance of people with their own money issues. And of course, we're talking here about prosperity and abundance consciousness, which is so many different levels. But this was one that came up for me, was this issue of, you know, just having enough and being supported financially. And apart from all of that, I also perceive that there is a kind of perfect now moment, a flow for each of us. So it's to recognize that, you know, we are all abundant and the universe will always support us when we listen to that voice and, you know, flow with it intuitively, but also to recognize sometimes that there are moments of greater levels of abundance within our own lives, and that's okay. You know, it's nice to have those moments, and it's also just nice to know that, you know, when we trust and surrender, we will always be divinely provided for.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
All right, so we almost finished this, and we up until now, we've moved into the 10th. We've got the 10th and 11th and 12th levels. So in the 10th level of this I Am Avatar Blueprint, what we then are moving deeper into the knowing of ourselves as a spiritual teachers and way showers. So this is also when the light body Merkaba field has been starting to activate. And this is really the journey that you've been talking about initially, at least into the 5th dimensional consciousness. That's what the light body Merkaba field has been activating to fulfill its job of taking us into that frequency. And once we're in that frequency, of course, it just goes the next dimension, the next octave. It keeps going. But that initial activation of the Merkaba field is to connect us into all those geometries, ray frequencies, cosmic oscillating rays, galactic consciousness, and all the downloads that go with that. And at the same time, actually just deepen into our service work as the way showers and facilitators to the sacred earth. So we step out more into our own service and what we're doing in magnetizing and bringing to us, you know, those souls that can be of assistance, that we can be of assistance to. And of course, those that can be of assistance to us too. The next level, the 11th level, is when we're really working now at a physical level. We're coming back into the physical body, where we're working with the axiotonal lines as they lie along the acupuncture meridian lines. And this is recreating the 5th dimensional circulatory system of light for the regeneration, rejuvenation of the physical bodies. And this is really quite important because, of course, we're needing to experience this health and well-being within the physical body too, in the merging and integration of our beloved I Am Presence. And the last level then is that we are working on the inner and outer planes, you know, with many of the councils of light and other high-level initiates, and, you know, just coming deeper into the sense or knowing that we are here as these awakened souls in service to the divine. And that's the point then when we really are merging and integrating and experiencing the energy of our beloved I Am Presence and being in form on this sacred earth as these light beings, as these master beings, as these flames of divinity. And, you know, it's just really on one level, it sounds like quite concise, the way that we've explained it, and quite simple, but we know it's sometimes lifetimes upon lifetimes of work to bring us to this point. And that's really where we are collectively. And again, it's done with our comparative measures, not to compare ourselves to others, but simply to recognize our own journey and where we are. And it's really perfect wherever we are at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that incredible share. I think that is so useful just to give it some structure of the process that we go through. Thank you so much. What I would like to say to the viewers who are watching, you are obviously watching an interview here with 2 starseeds. So our experiences are going to be pretty multidimensional and pretty galactic. And many of our viewers will understand that and be experiencing the same, but some of our viewers won't be experiencing it in the same way, and that's absolutely fine. Every experience is unique, right, Anrita, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to involve galactic beings and things like that, right?
Not at all, not at all. And particularly with the earth seeds, you know, a lot of them are just working directly with the consciousness of their higher self, or maybe just with the angelic realms. And, you know, it's just really often the star seeds that are working with, you know, the Christed extraterrestrials, and then with so many of the different other beings, and or just even with their own soul family, you know. So, and also recognizing that it's not only the level of, it's not the cosmic conscious awareness that differs from individual to individual, and their connection on the inner planes to the councils or light beings, but also, you know, some of us will feel more or see more or sense more. And it's really not to compare our own unique gifts to anyone else, because that's exactly what they are. They're completely unique to one another.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. That was so valuable. And I recommend that people actually watch this video more than once, because there was just an incredible amount of juicy ascension information in there. Thank you so much, Anrita. What I'd love to do now, because there's a special offer that you have put together, especially for the summit viewers. And I'd like to talk more about that, because it's awesome. It's called the Eye of Horus, and there are 9 transmissions in this. That's right, isn't it, Anrita? All of about sort of 1.5 to 2 hours each.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the teachings, actually called Teachings of the Eye of Horus, moving through the left and the right Eye of Horus. And these are beautiful temple teachings, working with the archangels and working with the order of Melchizedek. So it's quite a lovely one, where we offered this opportunity to experience these high frequency angelic templatings of the new earth, as we take and deepen into self-mastery, as we come deeper into our authentic selves, and also draw to us our highest potentialities and expressions of divinity as we walk this path of divine love. So this is overlighted then by the archangels and Lord Melchizedek and the order of Melchizedek. And we draw then upon the influence in these transmissions of the Kabbalah and the rays of creation, the timelines of different golden ages. We're traveling into different golden ages. We create the diamond light body, we activate the dormant DNA, and we merge with and integrate the energy of our beloved I Am Presence. So it's essentially, it's unveiling this hidden knowledge, and it's taking us into self-mastery, and also deeper into the sense of truly being home, of being in physical form upon this sacred earth. So we have 9 transmissions, as you were saying, Ariella. So the first one is called the Trinity Lord Shield of Light and the Inner Tree of Life. And this is this beautiful Trinity Lord Shield of Light is brought in by Lord Michael, Lord Melchizedek, and Lord Metatron, and the Archangelic Legions of Light. And once it's activated, it forms a shield of light around us, 54 feet in diameter, which links us into the cosmic heart of God. And the Inner Tree of Life moves through all the chakras. The next one's called the Trinity Lord's Activation, and the 7 seals of Melchizedek act as light waves of crystalline consciousness as we transmit and receive as conduits of light. And this allows us to increase this field of magnetism for ourselves and for all life upon the sacred earth, as we draw to us what we needing in any given now moment. The next one is called the Inner Purification Rites, and that's a lot of purification process work that we go in through that temple of contemplation, where we're to implant entity clearing, karmic clearing, soul retrieval, healing of old wounds, and then a lot of physical body clearing work, which is also really important in the work that we're doing. Spleen purification, lung purification, liver flush purification, heart healing, and related. So it's a very nice one to work with. We have one there called the 9 Goblets of Transformation, and these goblets are things like purification, centeredness, prayer and devotion, truth and honesty, direction and focus, the healing of personal relationships, psychic talents, ESP gifts, peace, purpose, manifestation, and joy. So we work a lot with invocations within this temple, moving into that. There's a very lovely one which I like, which is called the Attunement to the Golden Dragon's Orbs of Fire. And we work with these beautiful golden dragons who assist through their spiritual wisdom, protection, purification, magic, and ritual to deepen our service work to Mother Earth. We have the 7 roses of compassion, and we experience this through the angelic realms and through the sisterhood of the rose as we come deeper into our loving, compassionate hearts, and here in particular to the acknowledgement and knowing of our worthiness and our courage and the many perceived challenges we have faced to know ourselves as love. Then we move into the angelic golden solar disc templates and the solar rings of fire. And this we experience future time, space, fields of light, which we access and anchor these higher dimensional templatings, merging with our future selves and multidimensional selves. And beloved, I am present to experience this upgrade into this 12-body system that we work with as we become more crystalline in nature. We have the Syrian Stargate of the Heart and this Golden Age Temple of Light. And this is just a really lovely, lovely one where we travel in our activated Merkaba into the Syrian Living Library within the etheric of Sirius as it aligns to the center of the galaxy. And the last one there is called the Trinity Lord's Light Programs and Star Attunements of Cosmic Convergence, where we experience different levels of cosmic Christ consciousness through the overlighting of the Trinity Lords of Light. And this is just really a wonderful one, again, of deeper levels of abundance and trust and surrender as we attune to the harmonic octave of each dimension experienced in the creation of our I Am Avatar bodies of light, of our diamond light body. So just some beautiful ones that I was working on as part of these tele-webinar transmissions, and just been put out there and offered to those that would like to deepen their connection to the angelic realms or to the order of Melchizedek, or of course to experience an accelerated sense of their own ascension process.
What a beautiful package. Thank you so much for putting this together for everybody. So the price for this, it's a very generously discounted package price. It was at $297, but Anrita is discounting it to $97, just $97 for all Summit viewers. So I encourage you to click on today's link that I have sent to you in today's email and go and have a read, because there's a huge amount of information that you can read on Anrita's website about this incredible package. So I encourage you to go and do that and just tune into your hearts and follow your inner guidance with that. Thank you so much, Anrita. You are so generous in all of your service. The amount of gifts and free gifts that you've done for all of us to help us in our ascension path has been truly extraordinary. I thank you for everything that you always bring to these summits and to your work. It is truly abundant. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Ariella. It's always so wonderful to connect with you, and just so delighted you've got your own beautiful, wonderful little space. Are you still in Glastonbury?
I'm just outside of Glastonbury now, about 15 minutes drive. So it's lovely to have it there, but it's also nice to be not blasted quite as much by the energies coming through. So I'm enjoying having a bit of a break as well. But yeah, still very close. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So thank you so much too for co-creating with you. It's always so wonderful to connect with your energy, and of course to connect with the energy of all those beautiful light workers around the globe joining us, and really truly appreciate you also very much. So from my heart and to yours and to the cosmic heart of all creation, blessings in love. Namaste.
Namaste.